opportunity to be here today, and it's funny he brings that up because I was thinking about one of those last questions that was asked about what's the biggest surprise in the next 12 months. I'd say the biggest surprise in the next 12 months is the industry that's all about one standard will probably have 30 cellular standards for IoT in the next 12 months because they're multiplying so quick I can't even count, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So when we start talking about IoT, it really comes down to a healthy ecosystem. And if we don't have a healthy ecosystem, things start to fall apart. Everybody goes, why don't we already have 1 trillion machines? We don't have 1 trillion machines because we don't have all the parts available to really make that happen. As we start to break down different pieces of the segment and they don't come through to create that healthy ecosystem, the ecosystem cannot grow. So what I want to do is talk about what are the different parts in IoT that are there, and it's pretty darn basic. Going back to the pond, you need fish, you need plants, you need bacteria. You put those things together, you get a really good, healthy ecosystem. You get a healthy pond, the pond does well. For IoT, you need connectivity, you need devices, you need healthy software with good analytics that analyze all this big data we talk about. And you have to have all those pieces together. If something breaks down, the ecosystem doesn't work. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this particular ecosystem. It's called the biosphere. It's built in Arizona, not too far from where I live. This was going to be a great experiment to show how you could build an ecosystem and stick this thing on Mars and put people on it because it would be self-sustaining with all the different parts, water, plants, animals, human life, and it would be great. And they spent hundreds of millions of dollars, and they were telling everybody how great it was, and the message was out there, this is the greatest thing in the world, this is going to change everything, we can go to Mars, we can go wherever. The only problem was, it was smoke and mirrors. It didn't work. They were sneaking out in the middle of the night and getting food and resources without telling anybody. They finally got caught because they didn't want to tell all these people that invested their hundreds of millions of dollars in this thing that actually it didn't work. So they got along quite a while with things that kind of misrepresented to a bit, but eventually the whole thing collapsed. Now it's just a tourist attraction for what they think could be done, but what actually didn't get done. This is another ecosystem. This is a canal in Arizona, very close to my house. Interesting, if you do it right, you make the right decisions early, you build the right things to begin with, they last a long time. When the European settlers got to the Phoenix Valley in the 1800s, they found a series of stone-lined canals traversing the whole valley that were over 1,000 years old, that were built by the natives to bring water to the valley and create a large agricultural center. 1,000 years old, and all the European settlers did was dig a little dirt out that had blown in there and use the same canals to create a very large, fertile environment and grow tons and tons of crops. That's an ecosystem that was built right from the beginning, and because it had an enormous amount of longevity, and we're using the exact same stuff today to provide water to Phoenix. So it's a pretty amazing thing. So Ingenu means simply genius. We are about simplifying this business in every single way possible. It was interesting, some of the discussion on the last panel talking about money and different things. There is a lot of complexity and a lot of fractionalization of what's going on here. But if you have the right foundation, you can really do something extraordinary. RPMA stands for Random Phase Multiple Access. That's a technology that we created at Ingenu. It's the only technology that's built from the ground up specifically to be what it is, and that's a wide area technology for machines to communicate all over the world. Every other technology that we're talking about taking something that was built for something else and trying to shove it in this box of IoT. I mean, we talk about cellular. The cellular industry is about this. Don't let anybody kid you. The cellular industry is built on an $80 ARPU on these devices. That's why they've got no problem going from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G to 6G, because all we want is bigger, better, faster. That's what we want, and that's what we expect, and that's what we need, because we can walk into a store and get a new device tomorrow. And we probably will. There's a new Apple coming out in September. There's a new iPhone. We'll all be there to get those that are Apple people and so forth. But the bottom line is you can't do that with the machine infrastructure. If you keep changing things, you create an unstable ecosystem and you can't really build what needs to be done. The flavor of the month, and I'll talk about that in a second, is NB-IoT. I was at a conference in, where was I? Amsterdam about a month ago, and you had the guys from 3GPP and GSMA there, and the whole world's going to be NB-IoT now. That's the solution, that's the answer to everything, and they're getting ready to launch it. Well, if you start about talking about capacity, there's some major capacity issues when you start comparing what we can do with RPMA and what you can do with NB-IoT. When it talks about, is it built specifically for machines and does the things that machines need? Not really. From a machine, you want to know, did the message get delivered? Did you get the information? Or do you have to keep sending it and pinging it? If you have to keep sending it and pinging it to find out information, you're killing the battery, you're raising your costs, you have all sorts of problems. So RPMA has been structured and geared from the ground up to be specifically used for this purpose. And you have the opportunity to deploy on a global scale, which I'll talk about a little bit more specifically in a few minutes. Because we talk about cellular being global, it is, but there are some major challenges to that. Also, we have the advantage of no interruptions. We have a strong downlink and a strong uplink, and they're on different channels. Cellular's not about having good dual links. There's prioritization there, and you get a lot of blockage and challenges when you get into certain environments. I don't know if anybody's ever been to a football game or a baseball game or a concert and had 4 bars on their phone and cannot send a text or make a phone call. You got 4 bars, but you can't get out. You can't get through. And a lot of that has to do with the way the networks are configured, and they're sure as heck not configured for your $2 a month machine. They're configured for these. So, what do you get with RPMA? 20 years of battery life. Who can get 2 days of battery life on their phone without an extended charger? Okay? We know the cellular's not built for battery life. In the machine ecosystem, if you cannot get strong battery life, you have entire verticals that will never get off the ground. We have entire verticals who have been sort of shriveling and dying and trying to get going for a few decades right now, and they cannot do it because they've never had the battery power. With RPMA, we can do that. 20 years of battery life, and that's actually using the device, pinging it every day, and getting that information. So, this is the chart that I love because we almost have to update this every single day. I find it interesting that in the last 24 months, on the cellular side, we've talked about the future is LTE, but oh no, not really LTE, that's too expensive and it doesn't really work for machines, so we're going to do, oh, Cat 1, no, that's Cat 0, no, it's LTE-M, no, it's LTE-M1, it's LTE-M2, now it's NB-IoT, and even at this conference, we've had people talking about launching Cat 1, LTE-M, and NB-IoT, and none of the standards really even exist because they're all moving targets. You got Huawei on one side and Ericsson on the other, duking it out over whose IP gets into the standard. You have Huawei launching NB-IoT networks, Ericsson launching NB-IoT networks. You've got other carriers in the US still talking about Cat 1 when the whole world's already said we're not going to do Cat 1. It's dead. How the heck do you build a sustainable ecosystem when the moving target is moving so rapidly you can't even develop on one before it's dead and the next one's out? NB-IoT isn't even here yet, but everybody's talking about it's the future. But no one knows what it is yet because the standard isn't done. What the ecosystem needs is a viable standard that's there, that's sustainable, that they can use today, they can use in 10 years, they can use in 20 years, and it will support their machines and all their machines' needs. And that's what RPMA is geared for.
Ingenu is dedicated to building a machine network that will cover the entire country, and they will use less than 10% of the infrastructure that a cellular company would use to do it. This is valued by customers like Jonathan van der Linden of NV Elmar.
We have been looking for quite a while for AMR systems, and that fitted our needs and specs, but we didn't find any in that time. We implemented the Smart Grid project in late 2013. We started with 3 Ingenu access points on the island, and we've installed 170 meters. And since then, we've been expanding on our RPMA network.
So Aruba is a great opportunity to do a case study because it's an island, it's a country, it's all in one. It can be a municipality, a country, however you want to slice and dice it. But they started with an RPMA network specifically for AMI. That has now become, for all intents and purposes, a public network with a nice broad application list of multiple things they're running on that. They're running streetlights, they're running signals, they're running gas meters now, they're running flow meters, they're running all sorts of things on this network because the infrastructure was there. But here's the key to this, and it'll become even more clear in the next case study. They built a network for one purpose, and it was financially viable. Not an $80 ARPU purpose, but a low ARPU purpose. They built a network that was viable for one product. The next case study is even more dramatic. Shell was having problems in the Niger River Delta in Nigeria, protecting and managing their oil and gas assets. Well, Niger River Delta, very large area. How good's NB-IoT going to work there? Well, I got news for you. No one's putting any cellular towers there because there aren't enough people. If you don't have enough people with enough ROI on $80 ARPU, you're not getting narrowband IoT because it runs on the LTE backbone. They could not get any coverage. So Shell Oil, which really doesn't know anything about running networks, could never run a cellular network because it's considerably complex, chose to build their own RPMA network. They built that with 4 access points. We can get up to 300 square miles coverage out of an access point on a tower. They covered the entire river delta with 4 access points. From the day they made the decision until they launched their network was 90 days. The first year, they saved $1 million. Everybody asks, where's the ROI in IoT? $87,000 investment, $1 million savings year 1. They're saving even more now. That's for a private network. Again, RPMA works, and it works in such a simple, significant way that it can change entire industries and the ecosystem in ways that allows companies to expand like they never have before. One of the reasons it's so profoundly significant is because we use the 2.4 spectrum. Now people say, oh man, 2.4, man, there's all kinds of crap in there. You got interference, you got congestion. Well, our company was started by some of the same people that started CDMA. One of the co-founders of Qualcomm's on my board. If you want to go on our website and check out our board, it's pretty much a who's who of the cellular world who all realize that cellular's for people, but RPMA's for machines. If you want a global cellular solution, you need 16 SKUs today. Today. If you want an RPMA global solution, you need 1 SKU because the exact same spectrum is available in every country on the planet. And that spectrum is free. And it can be very congested, but we have networks working in Los Angeles, Seoul, Tokyo, many other cities with an enormous amount of congestion interference, and they work all day long, every day. This isn't a science project. This has been going on for years. These networks work phenomenally well. So if you're a hardware guy and you're looking for a way to get a return on your investment, there's no better way to get a return on your investment than build one device with one radio and you can deploy it in every country on the planet. That's SKU management. So if you're going to have a pond ecosystem, you have to have certain segments to make that work. But we're now talking about a global ecosystem where we're going to get to 1 trillion machines. The only way you get there is with the right parts. People have made decisions based upon cellular. I've been a cellular guy for a long time. I've been in this business a long time. I know the strengths of cellular, and they are many. And cellular will always have a place in this industry. But I got to tell you, the vast majority of machines that are deployed in the world, cellular is not the answer. No one wants to deploy the machine twice, or 3 times, or 4 times. 2G sunsetting. If you think 3G is here to stay, it's dead as 2G. And if you think LTE is the answer, just listen to the carriers, because they're all coming up with 15 different reasons to not use LTE and use something else. And now we're talking about 5G standards. So it's all about evolution to the next latest, greatest for the human interface. We're about stability, creating that ecosystem that will be there for years to come, because that's what's really important. What do we have today? We have actually 38 private networks running on 5 continents that prove RPMA works. What do we have today? We have licenses in 53 countries in the world and another 20 in the process that will cover 3/4 of the world's population. We're going to build, manage, and operate the US network ourselves. We're licensing the rest of the world. All of that has happened in the last 7 months because the technology works. The technology is simple, and the technology solves the problems that we face when it comes to connectivity for machines. If you can't get the data out of the device, you do not have an IoT. You have an Internet of Nothing. You have to be able to communicate with the device. You need to be able to communicate with the device, communicating to you, and you need to be able to talk back to the device with a good, strong downlink as well. Both of those things are critically important. So what is the answer? It's simply genius. It's Ingenu. And what we've been able to accomplish in the last 12 months since we rebranded the company, for those of you who don't know, the company was called OnRamp, headquartered in San Diego, founded in 2008, again, by people who helped start the entire cellular industry, who knew that cellular was a perfect solution for human interface. And everything that made it great for human interface made it negative for machine interface for the vast majority of machines. Can you imagine if you could deploy a device on a machine and not only will the battery last 20 years, but the network will last 20 years? Can anybody tell me one single cellular technology that's been around for 20 years? Analog is dead, 2G's dying, 3G's close behind. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing for cellular. It's a great thing for what we use it for every day. But it's not the right answer for machines. We need another way to do it. We've launched a network already through metropolitan areas through the southern part of the United States. We're on a very aggressive build schedule this year. But when you start talking about infrastructure costs, ROI, we talked about Shell and what they were able to build for a single solution and then get that ROI. You know, we have networks up in Dallas and Houston and San Antonio and Austin and Phoenix and Southern California that are building and growing every day. And those networks are having a phenomenal impact on what's available to the ecosystem in those areas. So as that infrastructure starts to spread throughout the rest of the United States and throughout the rest of the world, the 53 countries under contract today are on 6 continents. We have construction happening today on 5 continents. By the end of this year, we should have construction happening in around 30 countries in the world. Very, very aggressive build schedules to get those RPMA footprints out very quickly. We have licensees in countries that have LOIs for product as soon as the network is up in their area for tens of millions of devices already on the books, ready to be deployed when those networks are there. Why? Because it's a proven technology. It works, and it works every single day. When we meet with a licensee, it's really funny because we get all these inbound calls now. We don't have to do any outbound calling. Everybody's calling us. And we go meet with a potential licensee about doing their country. And we sit down and we have the first meeting with them. They sit there after the first hour and go, "This is not possible. It cannot be this simple." So we just send them to one of our private network operators and say, go talk to them. They come back a couple days later and say, "Okay, where do we sign?" Because it works. There's no question here. It works, and it works really well. So look forward to answering any questions that you may have. I have a few minutes for questions, so I'll open it up. Are you going to do a roving mic, or how are we going to do that?
Let me get in there.
Where are you, Carl? I hear your voice.
Coming out of the curtain, so okay.
Coming out from behind the curtain. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain.
Okay, here we go.
Hi. I think you, in comparison to NB-IoT, was brief but interesting. A point that actually it's important to notice while CAT LTE is based on OFDM, actually in NB-IoT, they went back to the direct spectrum, the direct second spread spectrum, like Ingenu, which shows that this is probably makes more sense for IoT application. The questions that I have is actually about trend that I have noticed regarding national IoT networks. So it was in the news recently that both in Netherlands and Korea, the operators, KPN and SKT, deployed national networks, national IoT networks.
Yes.
Right? And even in the US, there is discussion, there is a partnership between Intel and Samsung, actually trying to advocate and maybe implement such a network. So my question is, do you see yourself, how do you see yourself in the context of national US-based IoT network?
Great question, thank you. We are in the process of building the U.S. We will have the vast majority of the U.S. covered next year. We'll have 30 metropolitan areas of the United States covered this year. When I say covered, I mean 4 nines of coverage. It's covered. It's not the core central city, it's the whole metropolitan area. It's interesting that you mentioned the Netherlands and South Korea. The Netherlands are doing something. South Korea is doing something. The Chinese are doing something. We're talking about how is IoT going to become what we want it to be. Well, everybody keeps talking about standardization. All those guys are launching something different. They're based on different IP, different technologies, different everything. So what's going to end up happening is, it's like I said at the beginning, you might have 30 standards on the cellular side. It's going to be more fractionalized than it is today, which is a mess. Again, if you wanted to launch a global product today, you need 16 SKUs on cellular, and that's not counting all the new things that are coming. So it's complicated. It's a mess. What we're saying is RPMA, one radio, will work in the US, in South Africa, in China, in Italy, in Ireland, in the Middle East, in Colombia. The same radio will work everywhere, one standard, all the same IP. So we will have the US, that's the only one that we are going to actually build and manage and operate ourselves. It's our backyard. We felt we should do that. The rest are being licensed to these other companies. And those companies that are building, they know what they're doing. They're in this ecosystem somewhere already. We haven't made a lot of country-specific announcements because we're not about announcing contracts. A lot of people are saying, oh yeah, we're going to go build this, we're going to go build that. We have told our licensees they're not allowed to make an announcement until they have 2 things happen. They have network built and they have a significant anchor customer on the network. Then we will announce, because then it's real. Then it's not just a contract. So we have construction going on, like I said, in many, many countries right now. And so you will start to see those things happening. But you know, the SKT announcement, it's something that they're building right now based on a different standard than what's being done at NB-IoT. I know the one in Netherlands was loosely defined on NB-IoT, but they haven't even decided what NB-IoT is yet. So if they build it and the standard becomes something else, now you got 2 standards right there. So it's becoming more and more and more complex, not more and more simple. We're about making it easier.
Last question. Right here.
Regarding your build out on the US market, are you talking eventually getting to the big square states with limited population? And from a device manufacturer standpoint, if you do have your public or your private network out there and I want my device to connect to your network, what are we looking at for costs as far as BOM cost on the device and monthly charges?
Okay, so building this network is a fraction of the cost of building a cellular network, and that's related in what you would see from your monthly cost for being connected. Okay, so the costs are aggressive and very competitive. At the device level, it's aggressive and competitive. Today, we're in the 2G range, and we plan to get that even lower in the next year or so. We've actually announced a couple of hardware relationships. We've got another couple announcements that are coming soon. And with significant players that are investing quite a bit into an RPMA line of devices. What was the first thing you asked, though? Okay, yeah.
Square states.
That was the most important part of the question. Yeah, the great thing about RPMA is you can afford to put it where there isn't a bunch of people. Okay, so here's the irony. We had a private network in the U.S. covering oil and gas production. That private network covered enormous swaths of white space in the United States where there is no cellular coverage. We've actually folded that relationship back in and is part of our public network footprint. So for Texas, for example, mostly what companies do in Texas, they start in the core cities and then slowly work out. The irony for us is the white space is covered and we're doing the cities second. So as we get, Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, all these up, the white space around them already has significant coverage. So in the square states, in all these other states, there will be RPMA network there because there is ranching and oil and gas and water management and other things and a lot of machines out there. And you can afford to put an RPMA tower out there because it costs such a small fraction of what it would cost to put a cellular tower and base station. So yes, there will be major coverage enhancements for RPMA versus other technologies.
Okay, I lied. There wasn't the last question. I still have time.
That's okay.
Thanks, Carl. It sounds like there's two companies here from an operational perspective, a carrier and a technology company. In traditional wireless stuff, there's technology players and there are carriers. So you're attempting to be both?
Good question. It's funny because I talk to a lot of financial people and they ask us if we should separate those two into two different entities. It's a common question. For now, we do not want to do that. We want to be able to own, manage, and operate the U.S. network and then manage the licensees around the world. We want to use the U.S. network as our showcase network and also use it to, we're bringing in our offices and our operation centers are like the dang UN right now with all the people coming in from all the world for training. So it's really good to be able to train them with an operating network so they can go out to all the towers, they can go out and see everything, and we're training them how to hands-on, making sure they build and manage the network properly, and all those things are easier for us because we have a network here that we're running. So it's one of the reasons for it. Will we ultimately separate those? I don't know, but we're going to keep both for the foreseeable future.